There's a moment on Jackson Cantwell's junior highlight tape, one of those plays that stops you mid scroll, makes you rewind, and then rewind again just to make sure you saw it right. A linebacker blitzes off the edge, reads the play, and gets just close enough to feel like he's about to make something happen. And then Cantwell extends one arm gives him a casual little shove, and that linebacker is simply gone. Not knocked back dramatically, not spun out in some highlight reel fashion, just gone. Removed from the play like he was never really a factor to begin with. That's not a technique play, that's not a leverage thing, that's a human being with a physical gift that doesn't belong in a high school football game. That's Jackson Cantwell. And before he takes a single college snap, you need to know exactly who this kid is. Cantwell comes out of Nixa, Missouri, a town of about 25,000 people just south of Springfield in the Ozarks. And he did something that virtually no offensive lineman in the modern recruiting era has managed to do. He's become a household name. Not among the recruiting diehards who spend their evenings on 247 Sports, among casual college football fans, NFL scouts, national media. A left tackle from a mid Missouri high school became must watch content, and that almost never happens at his position. To understand why, you have to start with the physical profile, because it is genuinely unlike anything the recruiting world has seen at this position. Cantwell measured in at 6'7", 305 pounds before his sophomore year. He's now listed at 6'7.5", 325 pounds, with 33.5-inch arms and hands big enough that when he gets a hold of a defender, the conversation is over. That frame isn't the product of a strength program and a good offseason diet. That frame is genetic destiny. His father, Christian Cantwell, won 5 world championships as a shot putter and took home a silver medal at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. His mother, Terry Steer Cantwell, was also an Olympic level thrower. Jackson Cantwell didn't just inherit size, he inherited a rare combination of explosive power and natural athleticism that most people who grow to 6'7" and 325 pounds simply never possess. Which brings us to the shot put, because you can't talk about this kid without going there. As a high school freshman, Cantwell was already posting shot put throws over 64 feet. The shot put used in high school competition weighs just 12 pounds. Olympic and collegiate competition uses a 16-pound. As a junior, Cantwell broke the national sophomore record and posted a personal best of nearly 74 feet with the 12-pound shot. And in competition against older athletes using the heavier 16-pound, he went over 69 feet. He is a 2-time state champion in the event. He won Nike Outdoor Nationals in 2024. He was named the 2024 Gatorade Missouri Track and Field Player of the Year. The consensus among people who follow throws seriously is that if Jackson Cantwell decided tomorrow that football wasn't for him, he would be a legitimate Olympic shot put prospect. Not a novelty, a real one. That context matters enormously when you watch him play football. The power he generates on his blocks isn't the result of grinding in a weight room until he can move heavy things. It's a natural kinetic gift. The same mechanism that sends a 16-pound iron ball nearly 70 feet in the air is the same one that makes a 220-pound linebacker feel like he weighs nothing. Cantwell reportedly hit a 500-pound bench press as a high school junior. When you're built the way he's built, with the athletic DNA running through his bloodlines, that isn't surprising. It's just the output of the machine. Now take all of that physical freak show stuff and pair it with the actual football ability, because that's the part that separates Cantwell from being a curiosity and makes him a generational prospect. He started his high school career as a tight end, which, again, makes perfect sense when you consider how good he moves for his size. As he grew into his frame, the Nixa coaching staff transitioned him to tackle. And what they found was a player who had all the physical gifts you'd want, but also the technique markers that scouts drool over in college linemen, let alone high school kids. He plays with a natural anchor. His lateral movement is smooth and fluid in a way that doesn't compute when you look at him standing still. His flexibility and bend are elite. He doesn't just overpower people, though he certainly does that. 158 pancake blocks documented over his junior season alone, with 91 in his sophomore year, without surrendering a single sack. He also shows the kind of hand placement and footwork that usually takes 2 or 3 years of college coaching to develop. His high school head coach, John Perry, described Cantwell to reporters in a way that goes beyond football. He compared him to Kobe Bryant, not in terms of the sport, but in terms of the singular obsessive focus on daily improvement. Perry said Cantwell wakes up every single day with one goal: to be a better football player than he was yesterday. That he doesn't think months ahead, doesn't get distracted by the recruiting circus that swirled around him for 2 years, doesn't let the attention change how he approaches his preparation. 8 hours of sleep, eat right, hit the weight room, master the fundamentals, repeat. When a coach who's seen hundreds of players over a career reaches for the Kobe comparison, that's not hyperbole. That's a coach telling you something about a kid's character that the highlight tape can't. The recruiting process was exactly as chaotic as you'd expect for a player of this caliber. By the time Cantwell was a sophomore, the industry already knew. Every major program in the country was involved: Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC. The entire blue blood roster came calling from a kid from Nixa, Missouri, who hadn't even played a full varsity season. The rankings reflected the hype. Rivals had him as the number one overall player in the country. ESPN ranked him third nationally and first among offensive tackles. The 247 Sports Composite placed him fourth overall and first at his position. Every major service had him as the top tackle in the 2026 class, and most had him as a top 5 player regardless of position. Cantwell was named a consensus 5-star prospect and selected to compete in the 2025 Under Armour All-America game. And then there's the Gatorade National Player of the Year award, which he became the first offensive lineman in the history of the award to win. Let that sit for a moment. An offensive lineman, the award that typically goes to quarterbacks, running backs, the players who touch the ball and produce the numbers that end up on a leaderboard. Cantwell won it not because of box score statistics, but because the football world looked at the totality of what he is: the athleticism, the dominance, the track record, the character, the recruiting class he represented, and said there is no player in this country at any position who is more of a can't miss prospect than this kid. He finished his senior year anchoring a Nixa offense that averaged over 40 points per game. The Eagles came within one game of a state title, falling in the Missouri 6A championship to perennial powerhouse DeSmet. Along the way, Cantwell added the Springwell News Leader Player of the Year award and National All-America recognition from multiple outlets. The state of Missouri, by every service that tracks recruiting, hasn't produced a prospect like him in living memory. When it came time to make his college decision, Cantwell narrowed his list to 3 schools: Georgia, Oregon, and Miami. The Bulldogs have arguably the most decorated offensive line pipeline in recent college football history. Oregon under Dan Lanning has become a legitimate national contender. Miami offered something different: a program in the middle of a rapid rise, coming off a 13-win season and a college football playoff run that ended in the program's first national championship game appearance since 2002, a one-score loss to Indiana. Cantwell had already built a relationship with Miami offensive line coach Alex Mirabal and head coach Mario Cristobal, himself a former offensive lineman and one of the most respected line developers in the sport. He took official visits to Oregon and Georgia before his commitment date, and both programs came after him hard. He chose Miami anyway. The fit makes obvious sense. Rivals named Cantwell the top instant impact signee at the offensive tackle position in the entire 2026 class. The expectation isn't that he'll develop over 3 years and eventually become a starter. The expectation is that he competes for a starting job as a true freshman. The NIL component of this recruiting was also notable. Cantwell arrived at Miami as one of the highest valued incoming high school signees in the country at any position, a signal of where the sport is headed. For years, offensive linemen were the afterthought of the NIL era, with the big money chasing quarterbacks and wide receivers and pass rushers. Cantwell's recruitment and the valuation that came with it was a statement that elite trench talent commands elite investment. Programs are finally treating left tackle the way NFL front offices have for decades, as one of the most valuable positions on the field. What Cantwell's arrival at Miami means for the Hurricanes' ceiling is a legitimate question worth asking. Miami is already building something real under Cristobal. The 13-win season, the playoff run, the recruiting momentum are all real. Adding the consensus top offensive tackle in the country, a player who projects as a likely high NFL draft pick in 2 or 3 years, at the most critical position on the offensive line is the kind of move that signals a program isn't just rising, but has arrived as a permanent power. Watch the name. Before ESPN makes a highlight reel of his first college start, before the NFL draft analysts start debating whether he goes top 5 overall, remember that you heard about Jackson Cantwell while he was still playing in Nixa, Missouri, pancake blocking kids who had just walked out of math class. He's going to be one of the best offensive linemen this sport has ever seen. It's not a prediction, it's just physics. This is Odell with Blitz All Media, and I greatly appreciate you watching the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment on a player you think should be added to the list. See you next time.